What's happening? Benton here. Was not expecting to go live again today, but who else do I have to talk to? Might as well talk to Alphabet, Google, YouTube's Hell Pit. Ha ha ha. Them's jokes, right? Perhaps. It's been an interesting day to say the least. I'm about to pass on the left. I'm about to pass a farm. I won't say the name, but there's a farm that I'm passing, and it has some warehouses, and I don't know anything about farming, but silos, I guess. We've got a load of bird seed in like 50-pound bags. And we're going to Chicago, where my dispatcher has access to a dock, he tells me, and he is going to unload the truck. And then in the meantime, while I'm driving 3 hours and 49 minutes to Chicago land, he's going to find me a different load. So this ought to be interesting. And we already had the proverbial come to Jesus, whereby I informed him that I'm down for whatever he's trying to do, but I ain't staying up all night. And if he has me go pick a load up this evening and they're going to run my hours out, he's got to make sure I can stay there, because I'm not getting caught in, especially not the Chicago area with just anyway, it doesn't even have to be Chicago. I'm not going around searching for parking at 10 p.m. or whatever. Oh, Benton don't play that. So he seems like a reasonable fella who can understand my parameters. Of course, they always try to negotiate and push back a little bit. It's like, oh, yeah, we don't, more or less saying he wouldn't do that to me. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. I stayed up all night Monday night. No sleep Monday night. So, that's okay, but you're forgiven. I didn't say it that way, but yeah, that's all well and good, but it's my job to, I told him, I said, it's my job to make sure that don't happen. So just understand, I'm willing to do whatever else is reasonable. And so I got to this place about 6:30 this morning. Oh, let's back up. Perhaps the most interesting part of the day is the broker called me. And you always know it's a broker, because when I decline the first call, here comes a double call. And usually I don't even bother to answer, but since had switched over to my backup network, it interrupted whatever YouTube video I was listening to. And, I'm a little cranky old man in the morning. So I answered the phone, the second call, and I just started talking. I said something to the effect of, is this the broker calling me? Is this the broker calling me to make sure I'm doing my job? I want an answer to my question. And it's a female voice. It's a woman's voice. And she just tries to start talking. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Whoa, I want an answer to my question here. I said, you called me. You're not going to talk. And I usually don't. I'm not a big fan of that term, talk over people, but sometimes that's really the only thing that's going to be accurate. So you're not going to talk over me. You call, I'm going to say what I got to say, and then I'm going to shut up, and you're going to listen to me. And then I'm going to listen to you. And so I told her everything I thought she needed to know. And I said, okay, if you need any information beyond that, I'm all ears. And I right before I gave it back to her, I said, gave her back to her chance to talk. I said, I'm not agreeing to anything. I'm not agreeing to call nobody when I'm empty. I'm not nothing. I'm not. If you call again after this, I may or may not answer. I'm not agreeing to nothing. Because every time the broker gets off the phone with me, they want to talk to me like they're my boss, and it's like, okay, we'll give you a call when such and such, and it's like I've gotten to where I just sit there and don't say anything, and then more conversation will happen, and then they're like, okay, well, give me a call when such and such, and I'm not giving my word on some shit I ain't gonna do. And so usually by about the third time around the mountain, they figure out that I'm just not gonna reply, and they like, all right, well, bye. Hey, have a good day. Yeah, you too. And so then the woman is like, yeah, I'm calling to, and it's Uber Freight, right? Now here's where the shit's gone very wrong. It's a gig app, right? Benton as white nigger coolie, bandied about the country by motherfucking gig apps, apparently, in a commercial motor vehicle. Uber Freight. I shit you not. And I had a notion of this at the pickup. I got wind of it. Might be Uber Freight. And so I got to thinking, is this even a person calling me? Because I felt like I'd have got some kind of human reaction. I thought. And so it starts telling me, oh, I'm here to more or less facilitate your delivery, that's what I do, right? I'm the one out here in Wisconsin farm country with the fucking load in a truck. You see what I'm saying? Like it kind of doesn't even make sense. So I said, wait a minute. Am I talking to a human or is this the AI assistant? And it kind of paused and said, it said, this is an AI. So it makes me wonder if there's something spiritually or if there's just sort of something in the realm. Is there something in the realm to where it has to, it can't just lie to me, because it didn't lie. It called me on the phone and let me assume that it was a person. And then once I heard Uber Freight and I started putting two and two together, I was like, wait a minute. I don't even think this is a person. And a lot of women, especially with the tone of my voice, they're not, I'm going to get a very specific reaction out of a lot of broads talking to them like that. They don't like that. Most of them don't like being talked to like that. And of course, I'd talk the same way to a fella. That ain't going to make a difference. But so I just hung up at that point. And it did not call me back, although those calls are recorded generally. Although we didn't get to the part where it told me the call was recorded, so maybe it wasn't. I don't know. I think they probably just do it anyway, or the AI records it, as it may be. And so I get to this farm, and the first thing it's pitch black, it's dark, there's no lights anywhere. And I know I've already been told unloadings between first come, first served, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. And there's a sign with a phone number to call and a QR code to scan. And the QR code brings up like a JPEG, showing the layout of the property with some general instructions for moving about the property. And here, call this phone number, for instructions on where to go and what to do. And so I figure, you never know. Every once in a while, there's somebody in a place like this who will unload you, the royal you, right? So I get the automated system, if you know your party's extension, yada, yada, yada. It said, shipping and receiving is Monday through Friday between the hours of, and I'm like, well, wait a minute, it's Saturday. I said, oh, okay, this is, so there's your first hint that something could be amiss. And so I wait, and cars start arriving, pickup trucks and sedans. I guess a crossover or two, perhaps. Of course, nobody's paying me any mind, which I kind of appreciate. Um, so until a few minutes after 7, I call the number. I'm still getting the recording. It's like, all right, well, and one of my first deliveries as a truck driver was I got sent to a place in Wisconsin and got there after unloading hours on Friday and got told, well, we ain't doing nothing until Monday, so I don't know what to tell you. And I spent the weekend at a truck stop there in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, which is something of a town, right? And this ain't no town out here. This is actually rural for the most part. Although, of course, there's a super center within 18 miles of where I was. So, but I'm probably still going to qualify as rural, I suppose. And remember, I'm dealing with some version of an Eastern European dispatcher. Although I think he sounds to me like he's probably born and raised in America. He's still culturally Eastern European. And they've all got either a lot, especially if they're from over there, they've got a lot of the bullshit artists, or maybe they just got a little bit of it. But everyone I've talked to has at least a smattering of the bullshit artists in them. And which, fair enough. It's within the bounds of fair play. And it can be effective. And I've probably engaged in some bullshit artistry myself from time to time. In fact, I know I have. And did I forget the best part? It's negative 10 degrees Fahrenheit, lest we forget. So I get out to start walking around with my lighting. It's like, yeah, I don't know how much time I'm willing to do. And every fucking door on the building, there's multiple buildings. There's not a door. Well, I found one door later on that did not say this, but every door I find initially says, do not enter, employees only. All right. Well, because I know at some point I'm probably going to have to, if nobody's around, I'm going to have to do something. So finally I open a couple of doors that open, right? A lot of them are locked. And I stick my head in. Hey, is anybody there? And these are all farmers, farming communities. And I know enough about these people that, a truck driver from a different culture, a stranger, they're not in any way going to feel obligated to engage with my foolishness. In their world, all they know is, well, we've never unloaded trucks on a Saturday and a Sunday. We don't know why you're here, but we're, some version of good God-fearing folks. So we're going to treat you well. But part of that is, we don't get it if you sit out there in that truck all day. We don't, not our concern. We're not involved, right? We work here. We do what we do. We're not changing our minds. We can't be bribed. Oh, yeah. The idea of bribing these people hilariously comes into play later on. I feel like, it's almost like I'm in a damn Coen Brothers movie at a certain point. It's like off the charts levels of surrealistic, waking dream, surrealistic, unreality, deja vu all over again. Off the motherfucking charts. We can take care of this right here in Brainerd, right? I mean, it's damn near to them levels. And so I see a pickup truck around back idling. I say, okay, well, I can probably at least find a human if I it's parked right by a door. Because remember, it's negative 10, for fuck's sakes. So I stick my head in, and there's a guy there, thankfully. Last thing I'm going to do is just start randomly wandering around these buildings, because That's not safe. I mean, that, and I'm not necessarily worried about my safety. It's just like that's a bad idea in general, right? It's like, yeah, I probably do have some sort of skills in fucking subterfuge and recon, and I'm pretty good at sneaking around and not even realizing that I'm sneaking around. I sneak up on people sometimes, and I don't even know I'm sneaking up on them. Just sort of a natural skill I seem to have. I snuck up on a deer one time, but I don't even want to get into that story right now. And my thing to the deer though was more or less like, "Hey, buddy, why am I detecting you before you detect me? You're the one supposed to sniff me out before I can get this close." But either way, what the fuck's going on here? That's happened with some coyotes here and there too. It's like, "Yo, coyote, why don't you know I'm over here and I know you're over there? You fucking up, partner. What is this?" I just tell them. I don't know if they know English or not. "Hey, buddy, you're slacking. I thought you animals were a little more capable than maybe you are. I don't know." Either way, let's not get into that. Although I guess we already have the royal me. And so I don't know it at the time. This is where we get the maybe it's a Quentin Tarantino. Well, I hope it's not a Quentin Tarantino movie, but you get sort of the maybe a Nolan. What's that guy's name? Christopher Nolan. You get the where they play fast and loose with the timelines, and the out of order storytelling. But so while all this is happening, the guy sticks his head out, and it's the fucking owner of the company. But I don't know that yet. I don't know that yet. So I talked to a farmer, farmhand, older guy. I don't know what he's doing, but he's probably been with that company most of his life, right? And so he's like, first words out of his mouth, well, you got to come back Monday. And you can see the compassion where he's realizing that he might need to try to let me down gently. And meanwhile, I don't give a fuck. It's like, this is truck driving, shit happens. And I didn't fuck up. It ain't my fuck up. So I have a little combo with him. What turns out to be the owner sticks his head out. I'm like, tall guy. I'm just like, put my hand up, how do you do type thing, and no acknowledgement, but not in a rude way. It's hard to explain, but I didn't take it as rude, and I'm very aware that, and see, this is the way I was socialized culturally. Was I've already in some way kind of trespassed on this property, although technically, I got a bill of lading, and some city folk in an office somewhere made a mistake, and somebody didn't get the memo that they don't unload. There's been a breakdown somewhere, and it's only my problem to the degree that some of those people in remote areas, remote from me, are able to make it my problem, and they'll try, and they already have, and we'll get into that. They'll try to make it my problem. And so I already know this is a fucking no-go. It's a hard no-go. Nothing's happening on this other than just the basic tasks of farming, right, that have to be done 7 days a week, whatever that may be. I don't know anything about farming, like for real, nothing. But I know just enough about I know a little bit about the culture of the human beings who are farmers. Part of this is, it's 7 days a week. Well, guess who also works 7 days a week? Mr. Benton here. And I got the country accent, although we're far away from the South. But either way, I'm just sort of affably telling him, well, they got to pay me, and far as I'm concerned, I can just sit around all week. Don't matter. But I'm not staying here. That's what I'm letting them, because they do have overnight parking. Well, I was like, well, I'm not staying here. I'll find somewhere to go. But so then I send the message on the on the app, like just a text message, say, bad news. And of course, I take about 10 minutes just to double and triple check that I'm where I'm supposed to be and to make sure I didn't misread the information that was forwarded to me. No, sure enough, Uber Freight told this truck to be here. And Uber Freight, remember, the AI assistant called me. So somewhere, something technological at a minimum is under the impression that this delivery is to be made. Now, backing up, what I suspect is going to happen is because I failed to comply with their AI assistant and whatever it was going to ask me to do, that's probably somewhere in the contract whereby Uber Freight is not going to pay my company a red cent for this load, most likely. We're probably, the company's probably just SOL on any form of payment whatsoever. I'm just guessing. And the dispatcher he seems to be a pretty sharp guy overall. And I think he's probably done the math of, well, they're just not going to pay us. And he sort of alluded to that suspicion at a certain point with me on the phone later on. And so his first thing is, well, fuck them. How can I get my trailer empty so I can get more freight loaded on it so we can salvage this weekend? Which, hey, good on you, buddy. I like I like that spirit. We're not so easily stopped necessarily. But then I'm sort of getting a little bit, so hang on, I'm jumping ahead in the story too far. So I do make sure I got all my ducks in a row. Yeah, I'm in the right place. And so I just, using my people skills, my soft skills, and just my, right place in the right time, I've already done almost everything that the dispatcher is now going to ask of me. Right. And so it's hard to convey to him on the phone when he calls me, we do speak, because now he wants me to go do all of these things. And I'm like, yeah, man, I'm happy to do all of that. But however, you need to understand, I've pretty much done all of that. And I'm telling you, it's a motherfucking no-go. But whatever you want me to do, that's fine. So it's like, yeah, okay, I'll go talk to another person. But you got to understand, every one of these doors says do not enter, or they're locked. And it's like, I can only physically go so far into these buildings, because the way I was raised culturally, I failed to make this point, is like, we don't go on other people's property. Somebody posts a sign that says employees only, again, it's sort of a gray area in that, I'm somewhat obligated to handle business, for the company as a contractor, but then, I've got to conduct myself properly based on what? My code as a man, of course. And, I'm not violating that unless I choose to, and I'm certainly not doing that over truck driving. And hopefully we won't be doing that at all. But like I said, it's not a principle till it's tested. That's how you know it's a principle. But now there's a dreaded traffic circle. You're going way too fast, people. But thankfully, they didn't come my way. But if they were, they might have been surprised, because he ain't stopping. That big rig ain't stopping. No, I am not. So I'm like, yeah, man, and so he pretty quick he's basically like, did you offer him money? And I'm like, well, you know what? That didn't occur to me, but I'm certainly willing to attempt to bribe some folks. But just between me and you, basically, I don't see that there being any possibility of that based on my read of the situation down here. And then he's starting to get into the talk of, if I have to just block part of their facility with my truck, to get them to not ignore me. And so I'm like, man, there's nothing to block. I said, there's people here, but it's dead. Nothing's happening. There ain't no trucks coming in. And it's a farm. There's nothing's happening. It's family time, right? The bare minimum of whatever's got to happen on a farm is happening. This place is dead as a doornail otherwise. And then of course it's back to the lack of trust. And there's always an attitude of, well, it's unspoken, but it's well, you're a truck driver, what could you possibly know? And it's on some, on the one hand, fair enough, but on the other hand, it's like, well, I'm here and I'm observing and interacting with the environment. So, but yeah, and fair enough that the first guy I talked to, I failed to get his name because, now the dispatcher's like, hey, when we try to get the broker to pay us, it's immediately going to be, they're just going to say that we're lying and we didn't actually go there as directed. And, so he's basically saying, if they told you to leave, I at least need the name of the person who told you to leave. And I'm like, all right, well, I recognize that, it did not occur to me to get their name, but yeah, so yes, if I find another human that will talk to me, I will absolutely, get their name. No problem. And so he's off to try to figure out some kind of solution. But he's basically saying offer him up to $500. So I'm starting to get an idea of how big these commissions might be this guy's working for. Now, how we make payment, and is it just I'm expected, not expected, but, yeah, I do have some money on me, but, you spending my money now, buddy? Like, what is this? And I would trust him to reimburse me, but that's not the point. But here's the thing is, man, some people aren't open to being bribed. Some people ain't interested in doing whatever the money's being offered for. And some people, just aren't even really going to understand they just don't really operate on those levels, right? And so, and I'm having to operate within my code, which is like, look, I don't, technically I'm okay to be here in a way, but the reality is, generally speaking, they don't have trucks arriving here on Saturdays and Sundays at all. And so eventually I drive around the property just to kind of get the lay of the land. And I do find one door that says driver check-in, but I think that's for loading. It's for whatever I'm pretty sure it's for whatever they ship out of there. And of course that's locked. But I'm going to exhaust all means. And then I find out there's a mile and a half down the road, there's a gas station with, big truck fuel lanes and like 5 parking spots. So I go down there, scope it out to see if I do end up spending the weekend there, where am I, I want to know where I can park. And so as I'm sitting there, I see a truck go by, a sleeper truck. And I think, well, it's possible that Uber Freight is sending more trucks there. So I'll just go see if that's where that truck's going. And maybe I'll just kind of watch what happens to him, or maybe just tell him, hey man, I think we're SOL. Either way, I get back to the property, nobody's there. Or that truck didn't pull in. And so now I see a pickup truck at the same area where I found the guy earlier, and it's like a locker room. And so I open the door, and it's a girl in her 20s, probably late teens, early 20s, farm girl, grew up on a farm, and You know, again, how familiar is a person with these old school rural type people dynamics? I'm a strange man. She's a maiden on some level, and there's boundaries here, right? And so she's, I wouldn't say fearful, but it's kind of a hesitancy to engage. And again, I've got this social skills and some soft skills, and a lot of that is I'm able to read the situation. Of course, she's on the phone, so I'm like, I'll wait till you're done. And we never got within 50 feet of each other. And I know my place. And unlike, by the way, that Asian chick in New York, who made a point to almost, to get real close to me, right? If anybody remembers that story, this is sort of the opposite, but I respect it, right? I like it. Uh, I like things to be on a formal basis. It's good, some structure. And so I'm basically like, look, all I need is for somebody, and so you can tell she's so much outside of any notion of big city ways or corporate anything. I'm like, look, I just need the name of somebody who can more or less tell me to hit the bricks, so I can get out of here and not have to bother you people anymore. But and I'm able to convey that in a way, and she's not even really processing that um, entirely, and good on her, But it's like, so she called the owner, I'm presuming, and while she's on the phone, I'm just like, look, if you want me to talk to them real quick, whatever, whatever we got to do. And so she said, oh, that's the president of the company. He's going to come over and talk to you. I'm like, thank you. That's all I need. Thank you. Have a good day. I just want to leave as quick, and not even leave the property. I just want to leave the building. Just let me get away from this woman. She's about to go feed the pigs or, whatever her farm work is for the day. She's in coveralls and fucking all bundled up. It's -10. Well, I get back to the big rig and I'm thinking, do I need to back this thing up? Oh, and while she's on the phone, she tipped her hand a little bit. Not her hand, but she said, that truck driver's here asking whatever. And because remember, culturally, these farmers, they're all there's a specific thing where they're very patient and long suffering. And so there's also my thing where I'm very sensitive to the fact that on some level I'm transgressing, right? I'm sort of being rude in a way. I'm kind of putting them on the spot, which is, it makes them, my presence makes them uncomfortable, number one. But between the hours of whatever and whatever, Monday through Friday, whoever the company pays to interact with bozo stranger truck drivers, they're like mentally prepared for that, right? This is, now we've snuck up on a fair maiden, and we've asked her assistance, right? Oh my goodness. And so she hooks it up, and the president, he's I could tell he's pretty quickly I can figure out he's a sharp dude. So he looks like David Letterman. When I used to watch Letterman when Letterman was on NBC. Look, I swear to God, looks like David Letterman, who's from Indiana, farm country also. Of course, this is Wisconsin farm country, but Midwest farm folks. Tall guy, physically fit, grew up on the farm, I'm assuming. And he walks over, and no t-shirt, blue jeans, -10. No, you can tell no effect, not affecting him, no effect whatsoever. So man to man, well, you already got my respect, buddy. I mean, and so I'm climbing out of the truck, and he's starting to go into his spiel, and I'm like, hey man, I know exactly what's happened because all he says is, well, we've never unloaded trucks on Saturdays and Sundays. I said, man, if I may, interrupt, I know exactly what's happened here. All I need is the name of somebody to tell me to hit the bricks and come back Monday. And I just need to be able to give whoever, you know, uh, a name basically. And I've already gotten wind that he's the president of the company. And it turns out it was the same fella that stuck his head out earlier that I attempted to greet. And he blew me off, but without being rude. That's a kind of a skill all its own, right? And paid me no mind because I don't know he's the president of the company. So, why would, there's really no reason to do anything beyond that. And it's not his job. He's got people for that, right? And so we already know this guy can't be bribed. And so I've completely forgotten that the dispatcher wants me to try to bribe people because I know it's not possible. Meanwhile, I got $5,000. It's not in my pocket, but I could pull out $5,000 and it wouldn't have had an effect. Like this guy's got more money than all of us put together. This guy's got millions in the bank, most likely. And, I don't know how big this operation is, but it's got to be in the millions. Trucks in and out of there Monday through Friday, year round. And so I don't want to impose. He's doing me a favor by even walking over there, and you don't have to come over there and talk to me. He could have told her, well, yeah, just tell him don't come back in any more of my buildings, please, and whatever. And completely within his rights to do that. And more or less just stay away from him. And if he gets mad or starts tripping, let me know, and I'll deal with him. You're right. And so he's doing me a courtesy. And I don't know that this is his way. He just might, for all I know, he wanders around without a jacket on, or maybe this is kind of his way of conveying that, he's doing me a solid. He ain't got his outside clothes on. He's got his inside clothes on. If he's got to go do outside shit, he'll put his outside clothes on. The other two people I've talked to had their outside clothes on, even though I caught them inside a building, right? That's also a very specific thing. People that work outside in the cold eventually learn, don't necessarily get all bundled up unless you're going to be working outside. And so I'm just like, okay, would you mind if I gave them your name? And somewhere in there, and again, I'm bad at remembering conversations, but somewhere in there, I just basically dismissed the whole thing and said, city folk, big city folk have, they've all gotten together and I'm standing here with you and I understand how absurd the idea, and I'm conveying all of this without saying it. I'm standing here with you and I grasp the absurdity of the idea that y'all would ever even consider unloading a truck on a Saturday or a Sunday. Like, I get it, but, big city folk somewhere, they're out of that loop. And so I need to be able to tell them because they're not going to understand otherwise. So he said, Jason. And I said, okay, well, if you don't mind, could I have your last name? And then he says the name that's on the building. I said, oh, okay, the name on the building. I said, all right. And at that point, even if I'd remembered to try to bribe him, and again, I knew he was the president, but it's like, he's not the guy that the family hired. He is the family. Like, this is his farm. Right. Well, all I need to know, buddy, fair enough. I'm going to get on out of here, and we'll see you Monday, or in this case, perhaps later than Monday. I mean, I don't think it's going to be me delivering the freight, but somebody will deliver it. Although it could be me. I don't fucking know. That'd be funny if I ended up driving to Chicago and for some reason, there's still things that could happen to not get this freight off this trailer. Well, I don't fucking know. I'll be the last one to know. You can rest assured of that. And so now I'm having the conversation with the dispatcher who still wants me to try to bribe people, block, more or less block the entrance and the exits with my truck, disrupt fucking operations, which I'm like, yeah, under the right circumstances, I actually have that tool in my tool belt, believe it or not. But uh, I've leveraged the strategy of shutting down a facility to my own advantage before, successfully, I might add, at a Greyhound station in Phoenix, Arizona. But this ain't the point. That's a different story that I probably won't be telling, although I might. Who knows? And so now I'm trying to explain to my dispatcher that, well, yeah, I understand, but you got to understand these are very different type of folks than me and you are used to dealing with down here. These are farmers, my man. And, we are over socialized Americans, you and I, sir. I didn't say that, but, over socialized. And I'm going to tell you what, man, half these truckers deserve to be punched in the face because truckers have done is they've trained a lot of these women that if a woman pulls up beside a truck driver, they might get some attention from a trucker who's trying to get flashed. And half the time somebody lingers next to my truck, they at least expect the trucker to look their direction before they can continue on about their day. Not a fan of that. Not a fan. So I kind of comically, in an exaggerated fashion, sort of just looked at her through my mirror with contempt. Oh, Benton don't roll that. Benton don't roll that like that, I should say. That ain't my style. Anyway, yes, I'm slowing down. But to his credit, the dispatcher, he finally figures out that it ain't going to happen and moves on to plan B, which is I'm now on my way to Chicago area, the greater Chicago area, to bump a dock. And apparently, probably the both of us will unload the trailer, I would imagine. Although if it's a forklift situation, I haven't driven a forklift too many times. Actually, I've done like motorized pallet jacks as far as I've gotten into that world. So probably he'll unload it, but I'll be willing to help. And my thing was like, hell, he was like, we'll bribe them. And if you have to, you can unload it yourself and all. It's like, listen, man, I'll do whatever. I'm just telling you that these people ain't having it. So he spent like an hour calling every cross dock he could find. That's what they call them, apparently, cross docks in Wisconsin. And everybody he talked to basically said, we don't do anything on Saturday and Sunday. You can go fuck yourself. Because I'm sure he tried to bribe them. I'm sure he tried to make it worth their while. And they basically were like, hey, man, Saturday and Sunday's family time. Leave us the fuck alone. And he was like, yeah, it's the damnedest thing. And I said, well, I'm not real surprised based on what I'm seeing. Boots on the ground. All right. Fair enough. And very much these people will not be moved, right? That's patient, tolerant, and long suffering, but you ain't gonna show up around here and get them to change their ways. Maybe over time, you know, but not for the most part, that ain't gonna happen. And I don't know that certainly the company just economically we couldn't have I couldn't have made an offer to this guy high enough for him to even consider letting me unload the freight. It's just not going to happen. 0% chance. So why go? And I would have felt like I was insulting him. I would have felt like that was me insult. I would have taken it as an insult if I was him. Now he might not have taken it as an insult, and I'm not. That's below my code, man. I'm not doing that. We're not. There's not. They don't pay me, and they couldn't pay me to do that because I wouldn't work here if that was part of my job. And I think how I finally got around to the. I tell you what I told the dispatcher to get him to accept what I was saying. What I was saying is, listen, man, I'm not above bribing somebody. I said every once in a while I'm trying to get unloaded and it's real tight, or I'm trying to back into some real tight spot, and I just give a yard man $20. I say, hey man, I'm gonna drop this trailer. Here's $20, and you do it. And as long as I don't get the like I would, but I'll lose my job, right? So now I start with, hey man, feel free to say no because if you can't do it, you can't do it. Nobody's asking you to get fired from your job. I'm just saying if you're able to do this, I got $20 in your pocket. If I can drop this trailer and you can hook up to it with your yard truck and put it wherever it's supposed to go, and $20 still it means enough, if only in people's minds, right? $5 ain't gonna do it. $10 ain't gonna do it. Although I think I actually might have paid a guy $10 down in Laredo one time, but it's kind of a little different thing. I think maybe he comes over from Mexico every day and works, maybe. So 10 is kind of like a 20 probably in that regard. Yeah, go ahead and pass me. Now we're in the land of where every car tries to follow me. And they were going to send me 3 hours north, almost 4 hours north of where I was in Wisconsin, which is 4 hours north of Chicago, to just come right back the way I came and go to West Virginia and Massachusetts. But that ain't going to happen now. And so this Uber Freight, what I suspect happened is probably the broker that normally handles these loads, they figured with the weather and everything. And again, I don't know enough about freight brokering and dispatching to have any idea. Maybe this organization is working with Uber Freight normally. I don't know. Or maybe I'm guessing because this is the receiver, not the shipper. I'm guessing the shipper, for whatever reason, started working with Uber Freight. Now, did Uber Freight not get the memo? Was it an honest mistake somewhere? Which I don't even know that I believe in that necessarily. Was it an honest mistake? Or is Uber Freight's algorithm playing games? Because we already know that the Uber rideshare app and the Uber Eats and the DoorDash and all of these things, although Uber seems to sort of be on the vanguard of, and I've heard that with their rideshare app, they've really got it down to a science where over time, everybody that drives for them comes out to more or less the same hourly wage, although it's not even technically a wage, but it averages out to like $18 an hour. Oh, I got to take this call. Be right back, perhaps. All right, am I here? I think I'm back. Yeah, I had to take that phone call. So they're already booking me loads. So he's trying to send me down into an ice storm in West Texas. So all I said was, I said, well, just so you know, I drove 8 straight hours at 25 miles an hour on a sheet of ice out there in the Permian Basin. So I said, I just want you to know if I pull over and don't drive, that was the only option. And I drove 8 fucking hours at 25 miles an hour out there to make a delivery one time on a literal sheet of ice. And so he keeps talking about snow, and I'm like, well, I'm not from West Texas, but I'm from Arkansas. Down south, if it ices, man, there's no, they don't treat the fucking roads in most areas, and it quickly reaches levels where you just can't physically drive. So just understand that. But I ain't scared. I told him, I said, I ain't scared of none of it. And then he mentioned Abilene. So it's 3 stops. One of them's in Abilene. I said, well, what you need to know about Abilene is it snows like a motherfucker in Abilene. And it's high winds, and it's not what you think of when you hear Texas. So I said, as long as you're aware of all of that, it doesn't matter to me. I'm good. I got 15 gallons of water. I got food. You know, I can survive whatever I got to survive out there. But hell, I built a damn fire. I've made fire in this fucking below freezing before. The stuff I found laying around outside in the woods to be able to boil some water because I did not have any drinking water. So it's like, yeah, I'm not, I ain't a survivor man, but, you know, I can do what I got to do. But anyway, I guess this is an adventure. But I suspect what's happening is I was going to go through, as long as I made it through West Virginia unscathed, uh, which even then they do plow the roads and everything. They just don't do it as good as some of the other states. Um, they don't quite do the same job. Well, you should see the level of slow merging going on up here. Shocking, shocking levels of slow merging. Astounding. What was that? Now I'm getting text messages, maybe. But yeah, so most likely I was going to miss most of this storm, but now it looks like, and who knows? I mean, assuming I can get loaded tonight, I guess I'm driving right into it in Oklahoma. I'll be going through Oklahoma. So whatever, man. I don't even know at this point. What the fuck ever. LOL truck driving. Trucker hell? Question mark. Let me see what this. Oh yeah, this is standard. This is standard practice. Standard practice. Slow merging. I mean, hell, I'd write you a letter with a formal invitation to merge in front of me, but we don't have time for that, folks. Could you pretty please with sugar on top just speed up? Thanks. Let me see what this. Am I getting text messages maybe? And, I don't like being involved in that. And then, people will say, well, you got to earn a living. It's like, well, says who? Who says I got to earn a living? What does that even mean? What do you mean? This is a protracted experience of death. Well, I don't know what meaning does earn a living have in the context of protracted experience of death? Like at this point, what does that mean? Earn a living. What I am is the life, motherfucker. What I am is the way, the truth, and the life. Does that sound like a birthright? Well, only if what I am somehow accounting for waking dreams, surrealistic unreality, hallucinates on some level that it's even possible to individuate or break off a chunk of an indivisible force and come to this imaginary on some level land and have these experiences, right? Well, hey, look when the pickup is. The pickup is in an hour and a half. And I got a 40, he told me it's 43,000 pounds. Well, I got more than that in bird seed on the trailer right now, buddy. But who even knows? And he told me it was in Joliet, Illinois, but this says a different town. But either way, whatever. Crazy, man. The whole thing's crazy. Just thankfully I'm detached at the level of my emotions. I don't feel no type of way about this. In fact, it's all fairly amusing. But yeah, I definitely, you know, at some point it's like, is this even feasible to keep working at all? But definitely it's just such a and look, as we know, all systems of man are fully and thoroughly demonic and corrupt. I mean, obviously, and in fact, humankind is unable to create and operate systems that are free from corruption. But back to the Uber freight side of things, when you get into these gig apps, why wouldn't the AI and the algorithms in seeking to become more efficient, why wouldn't they sort of do experiments and just kind of figure out? And remember, this is all going to be based. Oh, shit. Hang on. I accidentally turned my navigation off. I forgot I don't know where the fuck I'm going. How silly. It's like, wait a minute. Do you know where you're going, sir? Yeah, I'm about to miss my exit, apparently. But thankfully did not actually miss it. Oh, that's a stoplight. Might want to stop for that. What do you say? Well, thankfully, everybody drives so defensively. I was able to get through all of that. But no time for misturn. But I'm not breaking my ass to get there. I'm getting there when I get there. I'm not going to dawdle, but what was I talking about? Oh yeah, the Uber freight. And the reality is Uber freight is competing, and this is where you get into the capitalism and the competition as a sin type shit, which is, in seeking to become, and by market capitalization, I'm sure Uber is, with all the investor money, it's a fairly large company, I would imagine, much larger than the trucking company that I'm allowing to employ me on a contractor basis. Now I'm in the wrong lane, of course, and nobody's going to let me over. So I'm not even going to attempt it. I think I'm just going to stay in this lane and let them figure it out. Oh, they're actually going to let me over? Well, it just takes one good Samaritan. Just need one decent person. So, you get into the John Nash game theory optimal mathematics that certainly all these algorithms are operating based on, and all of business is rooted in that on some level. And if the correct game theory optimal play, it's always going to be competing to hold these big companies back. Or, I'm sorry, to hold back these small companies. So in some way, whether this was the intention or not, this is Uber Freight is attacking the company that I'm contracted with. It's an attack, and I noticed this happened. JB Hunt, they're one of the biggest companies, and what they did was I got sent to this place, and I was given a pickup number, and I got there like 2 hours early, hoping I could get loaded early because sometimes that's a thing. And I went up there and gave them my pickup number, and they're like, "No, man, that's not a good pickup number. You're gonna have to go park." But he said it happens all the time. You're gonna have to go park over there and get your pickup number. So what happened was JB Hunt had the contract, and whatever they chose not to haul on their own trucks, the less profitable stuff, presumably, or just whatever they couldn't physically cover, then it's like, okay, they broker, but they're the brokerage. They broker that out through their app, their 360 app, I think is what they call it. And so what I figured out from personal experience is, they've got their thing set up to where it just will not give me a valid pickup number until exactly 30 minutes before appointment time. So I can get there as early as I want. It doesn't fucking matter. Now, what does that do? That actually affects the readiness of the smaller carrier, because it could potentially be an advantage in a competitive sense if the smaller company gets there early and gets their truck loaded early. So, JB Hunt, somebody or the technology recognized to intentionally withhold the pickup information. See? So these type of games are definitely being played. I can only really speculate as to the motivation, but it's certainly happening. It's undeniably happening, right? And I suspect Uber Freight, contractually has written language to where, if we've agreed to follow a certain process in the event that things go awry, right? And, me, uh, and I won't ever be able to get in trouble for this. And that's not a concept anyway, right? But, wow, this is just, I don't know that I've ever seen slow merging like this is amazing. This is astonishing. It's a commitment. This is a true commitment to the slow merge, truly. And I'm going to tell the dispatcher when he calls me back, if he calls me back. I'm sucking on exhaust also because it's -4 on the dash, and every car on the road has been cold started And I just realized I'm working on a bunch of exhaust fumes, so I got to put it on recirculate. But it's on defrost. So okay, there we go. Finally, I guess somebody didn't have a catalytic converter and roll the windows down and get my head changed. But yeah, I'm gonna tell him, look, man, based on the way these people are driving, I'm not fighting these bozos. You're just gonna have to understand. I know he's probably gonna be there waiting on me at the docks, but it's like I'm not breaking my ass to fight these fools all the way there. This is like a clinic in defensive driving. This must be Madison. Done been here once today, if that's what this is. There's a body of water. Of course, it's frozen fucking solid. Better check my battery levels here. 40%. What a mess. Ready for this day to be over already. And so this is the thing for me is, at this point, I don't have to keep working. I've got enough money. I can go fuck off for at least a couple of months. And that'd be, at the minimum. I could buy a car and fuck off for probably 3 months. Easy. But I got a feeling that even if I stay on this job, if I manage to stay here, which I wouldn't mind, probably end up taking most of the summer off. It's just too fucking hot. They'll at least have to put me in a truck that idles. Like I don't sleep when it's hot. $267A. Yeah, Janesville. So here pretty soon I'll be going past that truck stop that I stopped at last night. I think this is where I made that wrong turn this morning. Yeah, this is it. I'm pretty sure. Well, anyway, I guess I'm out of here. Bye.